Great work, everyone. You can grab a seat for a few minutes. Are you guys all doing good? That's awesome. Great seeing you guys.
And we are so excited. We are doing our Year in Review Sunday. Do you guys know what that is? Well, let me tell you.
Tell us about it.
We get to share stories today of what God has done in 2018 and come together and celebrate God's goodness through it and allow His hope to renew us. That 2019, although it's a new year, God is still the same and He's still at work. And so we get to come together and celebrate that. And there were so many stories we could have picked and chosen to do, but unless you guys don't want to eat lunch or supper or stay here for a week.
Maybe we should vote about that.
Yeah, should we vote? Take a vote.
Just kidding.
But so what we decided to do, we're doing our stories according to our 4 loves as a PAC family. And our first one is one-touch healing. And I don't know about you, but every time I read scripture, this is normal. This is what normal Christian living looks like. This is what Jesus did. He was interested in healing each and every one of us. And what I was telling Rylan as we were setting up for this was, you know, we're coming on to 4 months this week, you guys, here in Neepawa. Yeah, I know, hey? And in 4 months, we have seen God move things, shake things, heal things, and do so much in just 4 months. And I know He did it from January to September as well in 2018, but we got to experience these last 4 months, and I know that He's so interested in releasing more. And so as you hear these stories, hear the goodness of God in it, and that He's interested in doing this again and again and again and again. And so, with that, Rylan, why don't you, and before we do, we just sang that song, My Fear Doesn't Stand a Chance When I Stand in Your Love. And so we don't need to be afraid. We don't need to be afraid as we hear these things of what God does. He gives us wisdom, He gives us discernment, and He's interested in us. And so through that, we share this.
Yeah. So the first story I get to share, and again, there could be so many more stories. I even think of how Daryl's recovering from his surgery when the odds were only 20% that he would actually keep his sight, and his sight's getting a lot better. So, and I'm not going to share that story, but I just wanted to make mention of it because it's pretty cool.
Just a spoiler alert.
And it's pretty cool what God can do. And so the story I'm going to share is actually of something that happened to John Kilborn, who couldn't make it today. His lovely wife, Jenna, is here, and it's a story that's still unfolding. But anyways, John and Jenna were on their way to Portage, and they were talking about this love, one-touch healing, and they were, processing like many of us probably, some of us probably have, depending on where we come from, and they're saying, we got some skepticism about it, does it work? I don't know. But they were still hopeful. So they had the open heart posture of if God does this, I'd love it. But, just kind of processing. And so I'm sure many of us have been there, or maybe some of us are there. But even in that place, God has a way of surprising people, including John. So we went to the worship team, or the worship night, and the prophetic team, which for some of you might be new, but essentially it means just people who hear God, and we can all hear God and pray. So the prophetic team was giving out something that we call words of knowledge. And what words of knowledge essentially are, is just God sometimes speaks and gives information that we wouldn't typically know. And so it's specific information that would edify and build up, not to do anything negative or anything like that, but just to build up and help people. And sometimes God will give them for healing. And so in this particular case, they're giving words of knowledge for healing. And I may butcher the pronunciation, but I think it was Chris who gave a word for plantar fasciitis. Did I get it? Yes. I was looking to Brian. He would know. Yes. That's a victory there. But so he gave the word for plantar fasciitis, and John has that. It's a foot condition. And so when he was prayed for, he immediately felt something happening, and he went from having pain to no pain. and which was really cool. For the next couple days, he was pain-free. Now, it's not 100% healed. He's still journeying. We're going to be honest. Some of this learning about one-touch healing and God's healing in our lives is a process and a journey, but we're seeing God doing more and more, and we're believing God to heal him completely, and we know he's not done. And so Jesus is healer, and he does love to heal people physically and emotionally, spiritually, in so many different ways. And most of all, Jesus loves us and wants us to discover more of him. He wants us to have this real relationship with him where we know he's real, where we experience his love, his power, and most importantly, just him, just Jesus. And Jesus is an incredible healer. That's one of the things he loves to do. Which brings me to the next story, which is actually Ryan's story. So Ryan was also at this worship night. This isn't the only time we've seen God do physical healing, but we are sharing a couple stories from there. And so Ryan stood up for prayer because he had neck pain, and so there was also a word called for people with neck pain. And so he stood up for prayer, and Doug Pryor, many of you who are regulars here would have met Doug. He comes here almost, it feels like a lot. He actually attends in Portage, but he also attends here. He just loves us so much. He's just the best. And so me and Doug had the opportunity to pray for Ryan, and we saw the neck pain go down, which was pretty cool. But what we didn't know or wasn't talked about was Ryan also has tinnitus, which he describes as having 50 squirrels chirping in your ears. It can be really, that's a really Ryan way to say it, but it's really not a fun thing. Like, that would be awful. And so in the moment, what he noticed the next day is that he woke up and it was gone. And so that was pretty incredible to see that. And so he's seen some progress. And again, this is one of those stories we're still journeying, because with the weather, it still sneaks its head up, and we're believing God to heal him completely. But even in this, even with all these things going on, God's given him ideas and things that will actually help counteract it. And so it's been both God giving him wisdom and natural and medicine and things like that, but also in the supernatural where God's power to heal him. And so that's really cool. And one of the things of both these are both stories that are still in process. We have some where they're not maybe quite as in process, but why we love sharing them is to emphasize this. Jesus is drawing us near, and for each of these people, they encounter God's love in a new way. And so we don't have to be afraid if things don't go exactly the way we planned out. God's still going to lead us deeper into his love. And I just believe that God's going to release more and more healings, because that's what he's like. That's what we see in Scripture. Jesus is like that. And he wants us to have a relationship that's an adventure with him, where we discover him in a new ways, where we do experience physical, emotional, and all these type of healings because of his great love for us. And as we experience them, it gives us this heart to reach out and share his love with others.
I think what's really cool is that, yes, we see this, we see physical healing, but we also see identities being healed through this. Where if you think of it, the God who created the universe stopped to look at Ryan, stopped to look at John, and he cared, and he was fully present. He wasn't too busy. He's not too busy. He's fully engaged and fully present for each and every one of us. And so we're going to sing this song, Who You Say I Am. And we are children of God. And I know sometimes we don't live out of the freedom of that. But I encourage you as we sing this today, that it won't just be words, but it's a declaration that maybe if we're not feeling it there, we can trust that God does care and that he does see us. And for those that have chosen it, you are his children. And I hope we all choose that, because he's a good father. And so as we sing this song, just declare that from the depths of your heart. If you just need to take a moment to just tell God, I'm posturing my heart to receive this identity, I want to grow into that, then I welcome you to do that. But let it not just be words, but let it be out of the freedom that we live, knowing that we are his children. Well,
the next love we're going to be talking about is our heart, our prayer, just that our town, Neepawa, would be an award-winning town. We also pray this for Portage, and as God continues to expand, we're going to continue to pray this. But we believe that as God's love changes one of our lives, it changes the way we live, the way we love, the way we change the worlds around us, our families, our friends. They see this love, and this love multiplies. And so this love doesn't only stay with us, but it changes those around us. Before you know it, it changes towns, it changes places, because God really does want to change lives. He really does want to reveal himself to our community. And so in the prayer for an award-winning town, God uses people of all ages. And so we're going to start with a story of someone a little younger than most of us, except for a few people in here, like Noah and Dom and Lane and a few. But he's a little younger. But Sonia, why don't you share the story?
Sure. We were just singing. Yeah, that's right, buddy. That's right. We were just singing, "In my Father's house, there's a place for me." And there's a place for all ages. And I just sense today that someone needs to be reminded that there was always a place. You weren't last pick. You weren't last choice, that he had to go make a room for you or be like, oh, yeah, no. There's always been a place. And so be encouraged in that. There's always been a place for all of us. And so there's no difference to that with children. And God interacts with children just as he does with us. He created us, so he knows exactly how to connect with us. And this was the case for our dear Declan. And Declan came up to me a few Sundays ago, very concerned with a connecting card. And he looks at me and he's like, "Sonia, what is this?" And so serious, like he's not joking, right? And so I explained, well, Declan, this is a way that we're able to connect with the church if you want to plug in to serve in a way, or if you would like to get to know us more. It's a way that where we get your information, we know how to contact you. And I give him the spiel, and he's looking very serious, and he's like, "Where is the option to sign up for chairs?" And I remember I saw Heidi in the corner of my eye, and she's watching him. She's kind of like, "You don't have to entertain him, it's okay." But he was so serious. And I was like, "Okay, well, what are you talking about?" He's like, "Well, I've been trained." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And he's like, "I have been trained to set up the chairs. And so where on the connecting card do I write that?" And so I showed him there's an other slot. I'm like, check off that box. And you guys can see up here, we got the picture of his nice card that he brought in. And it says "Help with Chairs." And that's not even just the best part. The best part is I was in the auditorium here, and I was watching Doug Dando teach him. And you know what, Doug? You could have done that, and it would have been a quicker job. But you took the time to just be like, "Hey, join me along this adventure." And I think this is how we obtain this award-winning town, where we invite of all ages and say, "Hey, join me on this. We can do it together." Because sometimes it can be scary to do it alone, but when you see someone else and someone who takes the time to teach you, and it was so cool. And so why don't you share, because I didn't get the connecting card back.
Yeah, so Declan comes up to me the next Sunday because he took it home to fill it out. If you look at it, look how neat his writing is. Like, you need a translator. I would need a translator if I wrote out a card, and I would be the one reading it. But I'm exaggerating, but he filled it out so neatly, and then has a little help with chairs. But he comes up to me with a card, and he's like, "This is for you. I want to help with chairs." And I'm like, "Of course, Declan. We're going to make sure you can help with chairs." And he has been helping with chairs. And right, Doug? Yeah. And it's just so amazing to see his heart, his love, just to help out. That's been so incredible to see.
And so imagine that. When we join together, what can this town look like? What can our neighborhoods, our communities, and beyond, what can they look like when we join in together? We got each other, and that's the beautiful thing. It's messy, sure, but it's so worth it. It is so worth it. We need each other. And so that's the invitation for this award-winning town. And we're starting to see that. And what I think is cool about this next story is that Neepawa doesn't even know the part they played quite yet. But we had our Compassion Sunday also in December. And we were just so amazed to see you guys just run to that table afterwards to sponsor children and to save them in Jesus' name, that their story now looks different. And Jenna was sharing this story in Huddle where she was just considering how do we do this and how do I, let me call John. John wasn't here, and get on board with this. And John gives her the okay. Yeah, let's do this. We're going to do this as a family, and we're gonna, make things work. And one idea that Jenna had is we're gonna cut. You guys have they have a family tradition where they have a basket where they put all their favorite snacks in, and then enjoy them during Christmas. And you know what? We're gonna do this as a family. We're gonna give that away. We're going to give that up so that we can make room for this sponsorship. Because it does take sacrifice, and God honors that. And you know what's really cool is right after she hung up the phone with John, the phone instantly rings to John, and it's a phone call from the Red Apple. And they're like, hey, just so you know, your family just won this gift basket. Yeah, come on. Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
The Red Apple, did they know that they were contributing to this? No, absolutely not. But isn't that cool how God works? And he's working in our midst, in our community, to be a blessing, and God honors that. God sees that. And I just love the instantaneous thing, right? Where it's like, no, you know what? We're going to commit to the sacrifice. And what does God say? I delight in you, and I care about every detail of your life. And I'm going to show you that through this way. And that's the God we serve.
Mm-hmm. I love how detailed God is. This isn't just a random thing. It's crazy when the random things happen. But this is like something that was so specific, so meaningful to them. It's like God saying, I'm so involved in your family. I love you. I see you. I know you. And I also honor your heart to be generous. Because that's just like Father's heart. Like God's heart for us. It's so incredibly generous. And we have an incredible Father. That's something we can be thankful for. In a moment, we're going to take a little bit of time to give and practice generosity. And as we do that, I'd encourage you guys just to remember God's generous heart. Because as we practice generosity, we get to live out that. Because of your guys' generosity, we're able to share stories like these that impact lives, that serve other people. We're able to invest in people who care, or, you guys sponsored a ton of Compassion Kids. Your generosity has went so far. So I just want to say thanks for that. And let's keep serving those in need and those who our Father really cares about with that. So I'm going to invite the ushers with the offering buckets. One option for giving is an offering bucket's going to come around in a little bit. But there's also a debit machine in the lobby. And so we invite all you guys to try it out. Whether you're regular or new, if God puts it on your heart, we just say thanks in advance, and thanks for who you are. Are any of you guys encouraged at all yet?
Oh, yeah.
A couple of you? I know I am. It's so awesome to hear all these stories and just to see what God is up to. One of our prayers at Prairie Alliance Church is just that we would be multi-site, which essentially means we're one church, but we're multiple locations. So right now we're one church in 2 locations, Portage and Neepawa, and we're praying for places like Dauphin and wherever God sends us. Cheryl will give me an amen for that. But our heart is to multiply because we believe Jesus' love isn't just for us in this location, but the whole world needs to know his incredible, gracious love for them and what he did for us. And how multi-site, our vision for that, unfolds, and really God's vision to reach the world, is as we continue to share God's love. As we step out a little further, take a risk where we reach out to a friend, we reach out to someone in need, and as we reach out steps further, before you know it, we're reaching out to different communities and sharing God's love in different ways. So in that way, even the story of your generosity with Compassion and the Kilborns story, that could have been just as easily a multi-site story too. But Sonia, she's going to share a story about Jesus' love multiplying, because as his love multiplies, as his good news multiplies in people's hearts, that's how this happens. So you take it away.
So what's cool is you guys most of you have contributed to this next story and you don't even know it. So you guys see that basket over there. On down weeks, we collect non-perishable food items, right? Some of you might wonder, what happens to that, Where does it go? And one day, Jenna's our little messenger, to our little delivery agent, you could say, of the goods. And she had it on her heart that there was a family here in Neepawa that she knew of who was in need. And so she asked if she could take it to them. And of course, that's what we're interested in doing. Where's the need? Let's plug in. Let's be Jesus' hands and feet. And I'm sure many of you who have asked somebody to church, and for those that are going to, you sometimes battle with your mind like, do I actually invite them, or do I just tell them I go there? And this is happening on in Jenna's mind as she's dropping this off. Like, do I actually tell them to come to Prairie Alliance, to pack, or do I just say, hey, this is just it, and this is it, and like no strings attached? And there are no strings attached. We just want to freely love people. And so as she's wrestling with this, she went on with Maddie to deliver this item. And Maddie is our little hero in the story, where Jenna delivers the groceries, and Maddie tells Jenna, Mom, aren't you forgetting something? And then Jenna's like, oh boy, here we go. And she steps out, and she risks, and she invites this family to come to pack. And they were explaining that there was this, just their face lit up in a way. And then they started saying, Jenna said, you know what? If you don't have a ride, I will be here next Sunday to pick you up. And you know what's cool is that's a big risk. And I don't know about you guys, but that sometimes can be awkward. And just like, oh boy, is this going to be received, right? But our God's greater than that. And guess what happened the following Sunday? Yeah, that's right. The Kilborns come, and they come with this girl, one of the children of that family, and she was able to spend that time with us that day. And so the risk is worth it. Whether we see it in the immediate or not, God's interested in those hearts, just as he is for each and every one of us. And so I just love that, you guys. You could say, well, I'm just putting a canned item in there. But what multiplies through that is that we can see new people encounter God's love just as we have. And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah. So thank you to all you guys, because I know a lot of you guys have been inviting people and taking those leaps of courage and faith. And so thank you for that. Who knows what God's going to do as we continue to step out and take those risks. It's a little scary sometimes, but God wants to transform hearts, so let's go for it. Well, our next love is the prayer for our churches to that our next prayer is for our demographics. And what we mean by that is our prayer is that the demographics of our church would look like our community. So in Neepawa, what that would look like is our community is filled with Filipino guys and girls, and we love them so much. And so our prayer would be, our church would be a third Filipino, because that would look like what Neepawa would look like, because we believe God's kingdom represents all people and what our community should look like. So we don't want to we want to look like our communities look like as, our church. And so this is something we've been praying for. We've been praying for God to work in that way. And recently, Sonia and I had an incredible opportunity just to attend the High Life banquet. Henson and Mark and Donald invited Sonia and I to their work Christmas party, and we were just so honored, you guys. Thank you guys so much for inviting us, for loving us. It was a fun party, and more than that, it was great community, and we just felt like part of the family. And you know what? You guys already are part of the family here. I know you guys are so known, and so just thank you so much for inviting us, for loving us, for being part of the family. And know that you guys are part of the family too. And we just, And so thank you so much. You know, in Revelation 7:9, there's this picture in heaven. And it's the throne room of God. Everyone's worshiping Jesus. Everyone's just giving praise to Jesus. And there's people from every tribe, tongue, nation. It's incredibly diverse. The demographics of heaven are as diverse as all the people groups of earth, because God just loves all people. He is just so filled with love. And so when we are united and worshiping Jesus and focused on him, we get a glimpse of heaven here and now. God's kingdom is breaking in because God's kingdom is diverse. And so as we stand united, God's kingdom is breaking in now. And so my prayer and our prayer is just that we'd be unified in our love for Jesus, that God's kingdom would come and make Prairie Alliance Church as diverse as our communities and as diverse as heaven, because that's on God's heart. This next song we're going to sing is called Revelation Song, and it's out of the book of Revelation, where we have this picture of people from all over the place worshiping Jesus together. And so as we sing, just picture the world, but also just picture Neepawa and our community, the different people you know, and just make it our prayer that we would see such diverse people come to know Jesus and his love. Yeah. Peekaboo Dom. And so let's pray that together. Let's sing together. So you can rise and let's sing this one with our whole hearts.
Hey everybody in Neepawa, great to join you via video to reflect on 2018, but I'm even more excited about joining you next week. I get to come up and preach in person, and it's party week, I believe, if I did the math right on the rotation, so I get to fill my stomach and my heart with good times next week with you all there. Today though, what we're going to do is look back at 2018, and I get to take you all the way back to January. Sonia and Rylan, of course, only came in September, so there's like lots of months where they wouldn't necessarily have a window into some of the things that God did in Neepawa, and some of those things were really surprising. I actually went back in my emails to look at a timeline of how some things unfolded that I didn't see coming. So already in February and March, I got this sense from Stafford that there was change needing to come, but I assumed that change would be maybe a slight shift in his role in Neepawa or his larger role at PAC. I didn't anticipate that he would feel called to actually leave PAC entirely, and as you know now is in Morden, and it seems to be doing well there. I don't know if you've got a chance to watch any of his sermons or anything, but it's cool to check out his website and maybe shoot him an email or something. We're really proud of him. But at the time, when he mentioned to me that he was going to be moving on, I was quite surprised by that. But I wasn't super alarmed because we had somebody that we had our eye on to join PAC that would have made a decent campus pastor and would have either come along Stafford there or else filled in for him. But that person, just shortly before Stafford told me that he was going to resign, let me know that they weren't going to be coming to PAC. So there I was, surprised without any kind of plan, this backup plan not there, and then Stafford making a move that I didn't see coming. That all happened in the first week and a half of May. So we're sitting going, what are we going to do? Because we want to send the very best that we can to Neepawa, but they've got to be like somebody that has the PAC heart, that lives the four prayers, that wants to turn the world upside down. Where are we going to find them? This could be a while. And we were setting up things for it to be a while, but we were praying as if God had an answer just around the corner. So we're being wise long term, but we're praying as if God's going to answer our prayers. And on June 2nd, I think, is when he answered our prayers. I mean, I know he answered our prayers. I think it was June 2nd, might have been June 3rd. When Rylan came cruising across the lobby at First Alliance Church in Calgary, and Chris and I started chatting with him and had an impromptu job interview. Then we followed up with him the next day, and Sonia had already had God speaking to her a little bit about Prairie Alliance Church, and it just started to snowball. And what happened for PAC Neepawa is what hardly ever happens in my experience, is that you went from one pastor in May to two new ones in September by God's grace. That was such a quick turnaround. And I want you to understand that as much as we were surprised by that, as much as I was surprised by that, as much as our hearts went on an up and down emotional journey with that, God wasn't surprised by any of it. It was all his intention and all his plan. And as we've gotten to know Rylan and Sonia better, as we've seen how you guys have connected with them and vice versa, that's just been so abundantly clear. But God brings good things our way, not just for us. Yes? God brings them our way so that we can become the sort of people who pass that on. So as much as the staffing situation in 2018 was intriguing, surprising, and it showed God's hand at work, it also points to something that he's calling Neepawa to, which is crystal clear to me. I'll explain it to you under this big idea. The idea is we cannot be for somebody else what we don't have ourselves. So if our elders board isn't unified in prayer and living good lives and being powerful witnesses, we can't expect our church to be that way. If our staff team isn't united and loving each other and caring for each other, then how do we expect the church to do that? If our church, Pac Portage or Pac Neepawa, isn't a loving, united, healthy environment, why would anybody ever want to come? Why would God send anybody? What I'm getting at here is with Sonia and Rylan at Pac Neepawa, and some of the things that God is doing through them and around them and in so many of your lives, I just see the health level, emotional health and spiritual health of Pac Neepawa starting to rise to the point where it can support a lot of people coming in that need that health. God doesn't bring broken people to a broken environment to heal them. He doesn't bring dysfunctional people to a dysfunctional environment to heal them. He's not that dumb. He first heals us and makes us healthy, and then he brings people. So I'm excited about the healthy stories that I've heard in Pac Neepawa. People who maybe had that awkwardness of being on one side of the room and the other side of the room, reconciling and loving each other, keeping short accounts. People who are getting angry, sometimes apologizing for that right away. People who are saying things and misunderstood. It's just all the stuff of a family figuring out how to do life together and be really healthy. And God's watching. And he says, that group there is healthy enough for me to send people to so that they can be healed. And I'm so excited about where this is going. You know, every week we ask Rylan and Sonia the question that we always ask people in churches when we're pastors. How many people were there on Sunday? And it's more like it's habit rather than it is that important. What's really important is what was the quality of relationships among the people like on Sunday morning? And if the answer to that is they were good, they were honest, they were deep, they were challenging, then we know that those other numbers are going to increase. God multiplies healthy environments. It just happens. So just around the corner for you all, and I'm so excited about it, whether it's in Neepawa or Dauphin, is as you become healthy, God's just going to start putting the multiplication sign beside your church, and more people are going to be there. And the dreams that we've had for Neepawa will continue to unfold. But now those dreams are like shared with you, and they're your dreams, and you hold them in your heart. You have people in your mind that you can hardly wait to see at Pac Neepawa go through the same process of life transformation that you have gone through and are going through. I think of Pac Neepawa when I remember this phrase in Isaiah where the prophet describes what God's going to do in Jerusalem someday. He talks about the renewal, the beauty, the health, and he uses this line, and don't you think it describes Pac Neepawa so well? He calls Jerusalem a great place to grow old in and a great place to grow up in. I love that. Old and young together in unity, being transformed for the sake of the world. That's what is already happening by God's deliberate action in Neepawa in this last year, and I can hardly wait to see what he does in 2019. You hold fast to every good thing he's done in your heart this last year, and you lean in even harder in 2019, and you watch at what he does in your midst. It's going to be amazing. Grace and peace, everyone. Thanks for listening, and I shall see you all next week. I'm looking forward to it.